Alright, welcome back. So every new app we make takes installations, and there's just some of these things that we have to do. What we're going to do is we're going to use some of our bookmarks to get them done, but we're going to add all three. We're going to add Firebase, we're going to add Angular material, and we're going to add the Flex layout. And then I always like to add a toolbar just to make sure things are working. So go ahead and open up a new tab, and it's time to make use of those links you've got. So the first thing I want to install is Angular Fire 2, and hopefully you've saved off a link from before about where to get the installation instructions for this guy. I'm going to open up a new tab, and I'm going to start doing these things. The first one is Angular Fire 2 and Firebase, and I'm going to save those off. Next thing it says to do is go into your environments.ts and set up these configuration fields. So that's easy enough to do. So there's two environments. There's the one that's used for dev and the one that's used for prod. I'm going to be lazy and I'm just going to make them the same. So I'm going to make a Firebase Config object here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually copy that from over here. So I'm going to click on Overview, Add Another App, Web App. You probably won't need to click on Add Another App. You'll just probably need to click on Web App. And then I'm just going to copy the guts here and then paste it right in there. And since I like trailing commas, I'll add a trailing comma there as well. And I'm going to be lazy and I'm going to put the same thing in dev and prod, right? And so whenever I'm doing my development, I'll talk to one database, and then whenever I push to production, I'll talk to that same database. That is not at all how production app works, but it's just fine for the example that we've got here. All right, so we did the environment setup. The next thing it says is we need to go into our app module and we need to add some things. It's got two imports for us here. So I'm just going to go into my app module and I'm going to bring in this import. And that's my Angular Fire module. And so I'll just go and add that guy. And then I called mine Firebase Config instead. So it's just a little bit different. Make sure he's got a trailing comma on there. Oh, also I noticed that the newest version of Angular CLI doesn't include the forms module, and I need that, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and add back the forms module. That was one that they included by default. It was kind of surprising that they included by default, but they did, and then they decided to stop including it by default. And I wanted to auto import for me here, but it looks like it doesn't want to auto import. That's fine. I know where it comes from. It comes from Angular Forms, and it's the Forms module. So auto completed up there. But I like to put that one back because that is one that I use regular enough that I just put that one back. All right, so I was doing Firebase things, got kind of off track there. So that's initializing Firebase. You also need to, I never do this step. Giving a custom name, skip that. You also need to add which individual pieces you're going to need. So if you're going to use, say, the database and auth, you'll need both of these guys. So I'm going to grab both of these imports. And then I'm going to grab both of these lines. So I'm going to be using authentication this time as well. So I'm going to need both of them. And there will be more coming. More modules coming, but these are the only two for now, right? Get this to where we can see it better on the whole screen. So Firebase, Firebase module, Firebase auth module. I could go test that and follow their step number 7, but to be honest, I feel pretty good about Angular Fire. It's gonna work out great. So I'm gonna call that one done. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go do my Angular Material 2 setup. This one takes just a little bit more time, but I need my npm install for Angular Material. So run that guy. I also need a npm install for the Angular animations module. And so I'll stick that guy in there. It's funny that they used to do a lot of these things by default, but they hated when people use things they didn't need. So now you have to add a little bit more. And I just copied this. By the way, I hate that it leaves a space there, or doesn't leave a space there, but that's okay. And so we have to bring in the browser animations. So I'm going to put browser animations module there. And then we also need to add our this is the annoying one. Add our individual modules that we want for Angular material. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat and I'm going to use my kitchen sink gist that I've used before. And so it kind of looks like this. So there's a ton of imports, and really the import should be kind of like, you know, up in the imports area. And then after the imports, we're making an array that's exporting all those different modules. Now, last time, by the way, I said that at the end I was going to like go back and delete them, but then I never went back and deleted it. And I really don't mind that. So in my last app, I said, hey, I'm going to go thin this out at the end of the app and I'm going to delete the ones I don't need. But then I totally forgot. And you know what? I'm not going to go back and fix it. Now, the thing that makes this weird is like this is an import. So my next import statement will need to be right here. Whereas this is like an array and it should be after the imports. All right, so that was including the individual component modules that I needed. And I did a kitchen sink. Next is the theme, and I'm going to go do that, but I'm going to do one more thing first, and that is step 6 I'm going to do first. So I like to do step 6 first just because the theme takes a while, and sometimes I forget what I'm doing, right? Whereas step 5 I usually skip, and step 6 is a one-liner, right? All right, so let's go back and do this theme stuff. So here's the theming guide. There's 2 ways you can do themes. You can use one of the pre-built themes, but you only get 4 options. That's what we did last time. Or you can define a custom theme. Let's go ahead and define a custom theme this time. It won't be too hard because they've got an example file that we can copy here. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and get this on my clipboard. So just kind of let the whole example. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to make a new file. So let me go ahead and save that up. Clean up my space a little bit. So this new file, I want it to be right next to styles.css. So I'm going to right click and say new file, and I'm going to call it app theme.sassy.css. Speaking of which, I like to use Sassy CSS, so I'm going to change that to Sassy CSS. And in a minute, I'm going to have to go reference that better, but I'll get to it. So here is their example. What it does is it calls everything Candy App because that's kind of like the name of their app is the Candy App. I don't want to call mine Candy App, so I'm just going to change it. So anywhere it says Candy App, I'm going to replace it with just the word app. So I'm just going to do that file wide. The other thing I like to do, just to kind of prove I know what I'm doing, is I like to streamline it, right? So they've got a bunch of comments in here, which I'm just going to choose to delete. And then what they've got is they've got their primary color, which they've set to indigo, and then their accent color, which they've set to pink. And they've actually picked certain hues of pink. What I'm going to do for this app is I'm going to use indigo red, and I'm not going to pick individual hues of red. I'm just going to use the default. Warn defaults to red, so you can actually kill this line without too much bad happening. And so now I've got primary, I've got accent, and then warn, I'm just going to let the default prevail. And then the final step is to set that as your theme. Another fun thing you can do is you can change this word light to the word dark, and it looks very different. And I just did that just to show that it's not really that much code that's necessary for this thing. Now we created a file, but we need to actually like reference that file somewhere. And the place where you reference it from is from the Angular CLI. And as soon as you get ready to make changes to the Angular CLI, you may as well just stop serving because you just have to restart it if you're going to change the Angular CLI. The first thing I want to change is in the styles. I want to change it to styles.sassy.css. And this is also where we need to tell it about our app theme, Sassy CSS. We have to put a comma there. Little note, trailing commas would be bad because it's a JSON file, so if I put a trailing comma there, it would work out badly, so I can't do that. Another thing I want to change while I'm in here is default extension. I want to use Sassy CSS by Cool, and so that is Angular material. It's now set up. I do want to test it though. I do like to have like a little test just to make sure things work out well. And where I'm going to do my test is in my app component HTML. So first I'm going to get rid of all this nonsense. And I'm going to make an MD toolbar. And my toolbar, I'm going to make its color be primary. And then I'm just going to make it say password keeper. And now I can restart my serving. So I'm going to say ng serve over here. And then what I want to do is I just want to see, does it show up with a nice toolbar? One thing that I know I'm going to need to fix is going to be over in the style CSS. I'm going to want to make the body have a margin of 0. And then for my apps, I like to make the background color be DDD, which is nearly white but not quite white. So once I've made those changes, I can come back over and I can see if it's working. And it looks like I've got a nice blue password keeper, goes all the way to the edges, and I've got my DDD in here. Great, so things are going good. The last piece I need to add is my flex layout. It's actually the easiest one to set up, so kind of save the easiest one for last. And it is that I need to run this npm install. And then I need to add to the app module this import and then one-liner. So if I go over to the app module, so I put this import right here at the end of imports after all this Angular material nonsense. And then I need to, in my imports down here, add the flex layout module. Great. And that one I'm not going to bother test because I feel pretty good about it. So come over and look at all my changes here. Maybe give myself some more real estate. So I did the setup, right? So I changed my Angular CLI in 2 ways. I changed to add my app theme. I changed to add Sassy CSS. My package.json, I added animations. I also added flex layout, material, Angular Fire 2, and Firebase. This is interesting. It looks like animations, they put it in the default app now, but I did update it apparently. The app theme I made from scratch. The index.html, I added that link. While I'm in here, I guess I ought to add a space right there. Oh, speaking of little things like that, let's go ahead and grab the icon. So just to fix the icon, the way I like to fix the icon is I just go grab the Rolls Holman icon, and I save image as, and I save it into the right spot. And the right spot is inside source, so I'm going to replace the A icon with the Rolls Holman icon. So I'll just go ahead and get that in on this change as well. I got rid of the CSS file and replaced it with a Sassy CSS file. I guess if I'm going to do that here, I can do that in another place too, just while I'm doing setup here. And that is the app component has a CSS file here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename that to a Sassy CSS. And by the way, I'm fully aware that I'm doing things fast, but it's a video and you can pause it, right? And then the CSS file in here, it's actually a Sassy CSS file. And the spec file, I don't need that, so I'm going to boot that one out to the trash. And things are starting to look pretty good here. So see if any of these earlier ones. So yeah, so my fave icon changed to an R. My index.yaml has a space in it. My Sassy CSS is there. My HTML file changed. My Sassy CSS just got a rename. This said to use Sassy CSS, the file. My app module was the biggest thing that changed because I said all these things that I'm going to be using now. And then my environments both changed as well. So this is my boilerplate setup to add my 3 common packages. So those 3 common packages are, of course, Firebase, Angular Material 2, and Flex Layout. So we did that kind of fast, but you will get to know those steps because you're going to do them at most apps that you start together with me. All right, so that's plenty for this time. Come back next time for some real changes. See you then. Bye.